Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hey, Pete, welcome back. This is Films and Stuff. How are you today?
I am great, Ethan. How are you?
All good. Today is our weekly stream or skip segment. Listeners know the rules. I choose a show for Pete. Pete chooses a show for me. We watch a few episodes and we report back to you, the listener, whether it's worth streaming or whether you should skip it.
That's exactly right. And the whole point is that we prepared a list of shows that we wouldn't normally watch, because that is not helpful if we just provide each other with a list of shows that we think we would like. That's not really indicative of platforms in general. And the idea is that this gives you a bit of variety and a bit of, spice of life in terms of what else is available on your preferred streaming platform.
Get out of your comfort zone. We have found a few gems historically. We found more than a few pieces of coal. But today is a new week, a new episode. And Pete, kick us off. What did you have this week?
All right. So fingers crossed. This week, well, I say this week, we've been off for a few weeks now, but I had a show on HBO Max called Room 104.
Okay, I'm curious. Tell me.
So the name itself is intriguing, but it doesn't really tell you anything about it. It's an anthology series.
Another anthology. You get a lot of those.
I do. And generally speaking, I like anthologies, but the problem with anthology series is that it's very, very hard to gauge if the series overall is good or not good.
Yeah.
Because every episode is like a microcosm for the series and they're not connected. The idea is that you've effectively got a bunch of short stories. You're not sure, or at least me, after having watched a couple of them, I'm not sure if there is an overarching story that connects them all, but it doesn't look like there's like an interconnected plot thread. So it's very difficult for me to give you an honest rating, or let's say a valid rating. I can only judge it on the basis of what I saw. So let me give you an idea of the first and second episode, and then you can kind of see where this is going.
Let's see where this is going.
The idea is that Room 104 is a series of stories set in a hotel room or a motel room, room number 104. Exactly.
Yep.
And the first episode, for example, it's about a father and son who are staying at that hotel or that motel. And the father hires a babysitter to look after the kid while he's away.
This sounds creepy. Is it going to be creepy?
It's a bit creepy because we immediately learn that the kid has an imaginary friend.
Oh, yeah.
And that friend is in the bathroom that no one's allowed to go in the bathroom.
No way.
And then you turn out that then you think it becomes a little bit of a psychological thriller / horror story where you're not sure if there actually is a second kid. You aren't sure if there is a second kid, that if he's sane or not sane. And then you find out that there is a second kid, but that second kid is a psychopath and he starts attacking her.
Oh my gosh.
And then you find out that she ends up killing that second kid.
Oh no. Stop.
And then of course, plot twist, which everyone sees coming, it was all in her mind. And at the end of the episode, you find out that she's actually killed the kid that she was looking after. And there was no imaginary kid.
This is like M. Night Shyamalan, right?
Exactly. It's right up his alley. And then like the second episode's weird also. So it's about a couple who we don't realize it, but who are actually sexual deviants. And what they do is they order in a pizza. They kidnap that pizza delivery driver to basically watch them have sex. Then you find out that the pizza guy was actually a director who's auditioning couples to do this for him.
So they're all like these kind of creepy stories with a twist that's intended to kind of blow your mind.
Something like that. And I think in terms of storytelling, the advantage to anthologies is that it allows you to tell a short, concise story that may not be able to justify an entire movie or an entire TV series.
There is a place in this world for anthologies.
Absolutely.
And we've liked a few of them. Yeah.
And we've seen a few of them. I've loved, for example, Love, Death, and Robots. I thought was a fantastic anthology series.
Oh, yeah. Our viewers did also.
I think this could be good, but I think you also have to appreciate or want something that may edge on the side of psychological, not necessarily horror, but like suspense or thriller of some kind.
You've got to have an open mind and like not a weak stomach, it sounds like. Right?
Exactly. And that's where it comes down to, is you have to be able to make sure that the things you're watching could go wrong very quickly. It goes from 0 to 60 at the flip of a switch. Yeah. And if it does, you need to be okay with it. Because there's no build up, right? Like Sixth Sense, super creepy, but there was a 90-minute build up to that movie. This is 35 minutes, 45 minutes, no build up, and you're kind of just slapped in the face. It's tough. What I liked about this, so I did a little bit of research. The idea was effectively to make a very cheap TV series, which really only has that one set, right? Which is just this room in a motel. Yeah. What they did was they had the writer's room come up with a bunch of these ideas, and then they reached out to a bunch of different directors to see if they wanted to shoot those ideas instead of the other way around.
Right.
And then, so for example, I read that one of the directors shot the episode in 2 days using an iPhone.
Whoa.
Yeah, exactly. So, it gives it kind of almost like a student film vibe, which is kind of cool if you think about it. But
I mean, from a business perspective, the anthology does make a lot of sense, right? I mean, this is nothing's easy to pitch, but this is kind of an easier one to pitch where you're like, hey, all you need is like one crummy hotel. We'll get a bunch of people, like not a lot of long-term contracts. We'll just keep it snappy. I can do it on a shoestring budget. It's never going to be, HBO's House of the Dragon, but it will be something that gets a few views. It'll be some good content on your platform.
It's quirky enough that it's such a niche thing or in a niche genre that it ticks a lot of boxes with very minimal cost.
Yeah. And if you're a director, I can also see the appeal of saying, hey, like I've got a day off. I mean, everyone's got to work. I've got a couple days. Like, let me throw my hat in the ring. I've always wanted to do something. I'm not willing to commit a year to this project.
Yeah.
But like I can definitely put in, like a week or two, take a small paycheck, meet some cool people, and
simultaneously, I'm a no-name guy. I've done maybe a few ads or I've done a few music videos. This could be a great way for me to get somebody's attention in the industry as well.
Yeah.
So on that basis,
what's it called? 104?
Room 104. Yeah. In general, I think that this has the potential to be really good, but it also has the potential to be really bad because that's just the nature of anthology series. You'll love some, you'll hate others, which is why I give this a mooch. And I give that with the caveat of saying, listen, it really could go either way. And the only way to really know if it's a good series or not is to stick it through all, there's 4 seasons. I think there's 12 or 14 episodes per season. To really stick it through all of them. And I don't even think that even from season to season, like I think seasons are almost irrelevant if it continues that anthology basis. On that basis, I give it a mooch with that, heavy asterisk, the caveat is don't come back to us if you really hated it, or don't blame us for, underselling it if you really loved it. I walked away saying, I think this could be good, but I'm not going to invest 2 weeks or 3 weeks to watch all 4 seasons.
Yeah. I mean, this, if you're into this, I'm not going to watch it because that I've got a super weak stomach when it comes to like anything that borders on like scary, stabby generally. I'm not a big stabby fan. Stuff like this is not for me. But if it was, we did love and Death and Robots.
Yep. Love, Death and Robots.
Right. We love that. And the nice thing about that was, that's a good, I don't know about you, but I consider that like a breakfast series, like if you're sitting around in the morning and you just kind of want to watch something and you're like, look, I definitely don't have time to watch a whole movie. I'm just eating my cereal. Right.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't want to start a series that I love, because a series I love, I want to put on, comfy pajamas. I want to
Yeah.
have my popcorn. I want to like turn the lights out, and I want to watch all the, I don't want to stop halfway through. An anthology is really good because you're like, hey, like I'm just kind of looking to watch something while I catch up on the news or I put on my socks or whatever it is. And you can stop it, or the episode can be done. You can move on, and you don't feel like,
Exactly.
I really dread, like,
without making it sound bad, but it feels very disposable.
Yeah.
Which is to say,
Right.
I've got 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't see anything on YouTube. I don't want to listen to a 2-hour long podcast. I don't want to watch the next episode of The Mandalorian.
Right.
This is a quick and easy watch. By quick, I don't necessarily mean in time, but I mean in terms of emotional investment is very minimal.
Emotionally quick.
Yeah. So that's where I fall with Room 104. I don't slam it, but at the same time, I hesitate to promote it. So take that as you will. I
will not watch it, but my hat's off to you for doing so. Thank you, Pete. Okay. I had this week
The Patient, right?
The Patient.
I'm super excited about this.
Are you?
I am. I think it's Steve Carell, right?
It is Steve Carell, who we loved for maybe like 20 years now or more. So The Patient is on Hulu, and Hulu's always got some really great stuff. It's Steve Carell and Domhnall Gleeson. You know this dude?
Yeah, he's awesome.
Hux from Star Wars, yeah?
Yeah, not just that. He's also the son of Brendan Gleeson.
Yep.
He's very good.
From that perspective, this seemed like it was going to be amazing. And I think that's why you were pretty stoked about it, which is Hulu. Hulu's very quality. Carell is quality. Domhnall is quality. Let me tell you a little bit about the plot, and you'll see why my enthusiasm is not at the level of your enthusiasm. Do you remember the Stephen King book or movie Misery?
I do, with Kathy Bates.
Yeah, Kathy Bates. This is a little bit similar. I'd also say it's a little bit similar to Dexter, if you've seen Dexter.
Oh, yeah.
So Steve Carell is a psychologist, and he's got all these issues in his personal life as well. So if you watch the first season, which is 10 episodes, you see a lot of his backstory in terms of how he's got some, relationship issues in his private life. But just for purposes of kind of the intro, he is a psychologist. He is introduced to a new patient, which is Domhnall, who comes across as, the prototypical fine young man. Fast forward just a little bit, and you see that Domhnall is actually a serial killer, very similar to Dexter. He cannot control himself. He's a killer. He recognizes that he's got some problem, and he's open to Steve Carell saying, whose name is Alan for purposes of the show. He says to Alan, look, dude, I've got a problem. You're a psychologist. You're trained to help people with their problems. I'm being very open with you about a problem. Help me. I really want to be better. Carell, for a lot of reasons, decides, okay, like I can't let this guy down. This is very unorthodox, but I'm up for the challenge. And then it turns a little bit like Kathy Bates in Misery, right? Where Domhnall actually doesn't allow Carell to leave, kind of abducts him. There's some scenes where he's actually like physically restrained from leaving Domhnall's place. It gets creepy in a hurry. So I watched 2 episodes, and I was really like, I'm doing this for Pete. I'm doing this for Pete. I'm doing this for Pete. This isn't my style, Anything like capture, bondage, it's not my style,
Right.
Like I can watch an action movie where machine guns, blow up like a million pieces and brains and guts are flying all over the place, and somehow I'm fine. One kidnapping, abduction, rope on hands,
too real,
Right. So it really didn't sit well with me, but that's from a story or a narrative perspective. From an acting perspective, from a dramatic perspective, it's a great show. Honestly, they do really, really good work, and they play their parts extraordinarily well, which are not easy parts to play with a lot of believability. I'm sure that there is an award somewhere for the show, and deservedly so. But from my perspective, when I'm trying to stream something to relax my mind, to enjoy life, to fill myself with happy vibes, this is not doing it. This is not the show that preps me for bed. This is the show that keeps me pacing all night, stressing and sweating and worrying and fidgeting and blah, blah, blah. So it's absolutely not for me. If you kind of like this stuff, though, like a real thriller, like I could see that this would be a very, very popular show. There are a lot of twists and turns. It's not as straightforward as I've kind of made it out because I've read the episode summary for the rest of the season. I'm sure it's dynamic. The relationship is not as clean or as clear as I kind of summarized it in the beginning 2 episodes. It does take some turns, but the overall like theme is not for me. My rating is a skip. I can see someone who could give it a mooch. I have to say I'd be a little surprised if there was a huge audience that gave it a must subscribe, but I can see like a good number of mooches out there. But for me personally, this is a skip. I can't watch it. And if you've got a weak stomach for stuff like this, or you're looking for some happy vibes, this is not the show for you.
Presumably this is quite serious, right? Not like comedic in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, there's no haha levity in it. Yeah. This is hardcore. Like I said, this is somewhere between Dexter and Misery. If you were okay with those two, you may love this. If those shows, like just the synopsis turned you off, you will not enjoy this any more than that.
All right. Well, I will definitely check it out because I did like Dexter and I did like Misery. Yeah. And this has, the reason I put it on your list was because Steve Carell maybe 10 years ago did a movie called Foxcatcher.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you remember that, but
I do remember that.
So where he plays John DuPont, right? And, he sponsors the 2 Olympic wrestlers in the 80s, maybe early 90s. I can't remember. Yeah. He plays a very convincing, almost like psychopaths, or not psychopath, like a sociopath, right?
Yeah.
It was creepy, but it was also really like well done, I thought. And I thought it was a nice change of pace considering, I mean, I've known Steve Carell from The Daily Show, from Bruce Almighty, from Evan Almighty, from The Office.
How about Anchorman?
Like all these, not just silly, but like overly silly roles.
Yeah.
And to see an actor transition from a very comedic role to a very dramatic role, you have to be really good to pull it off.
Right? I was just gonna say, I mean, you're right. I mean, he was so silly and goofy on Anchorman and The Daily Show. I mean, those characters he was in Little Miss Sunshine. I mean, he was playing characters that were
40-year-old virgin. All these places where anything but the straight man.
Yeah. Right? And for him to transition to kind of like the morning show stuff, Foxcatcher, this, I can see why he kind of now gravitates to these roles. I mean, I'm not trying to get in his head, but you do see it sometimes. You see it with Matthew McConaughey, like this overcompensation to try to distance themselves from, the fluff that they did early in their career and they needed a paycheck. And now they kind of gravitate the other side and they're like, look, I got to gain a lot of weight, lose a lot of weight. Christian Bale, for example, who try to like run from their roles. But bravo to Steve Carell. I agree. Like I was just going to say before you brought that up, like we should really take like a moment of silence to like respect the range that he has, that the same person who played Michael on The Office can play this dude or Foxcatcher.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. It's really good. I think it seems cliche to say it, but it kind of feels like it's the career arc of Tom Hanks as well, right? Who went from like Bosom Buddies and Turner and Hooch and all these great, what was that one with the mermaid?
Yeah.
Flash. Right? To make all these comedic movies in the 80s.
Was he in Mannequin?
I think he was in Mannequin as well. Yeah. And to go from like these comedic 80s rom-com / silly movies to basically one of like the all-stars of dramatic actors in American cinematic history. Pretty good, right?
So can we just call a timeout for a tangent on Streamer Skip?
Yeah,
you just mentioned something that made me think, there's a lot of crap in, let's say, the media / society about how bad Hollywood is now. All they do is superhero movies, multiverse. There's a lot of negativity. Can we just go back to the 80s when someone pitched and got made a movie called Mannequin
Yeah.
about a dude who falls in love with a mannequin.
Yeah.
How about Weekend at Bernie's, which was so
which got a sequel.
So I think anyone who's a little bit critical on the absence of originality in Hollywood is got a very short memory in terms of how miserable things actually were at one point, that someone got a movie made saying, hey, how about a loser somehow meets a mannequin who comes to life, who's beautiful, and she falls in love with him, and he's got to like transport her all over the city. That will be a funny movie, right? And someone's like, yeah, let's make that movie.
We had basically a real life Pinocchio situation.
Yeah.
And then a real life Little Mermaid situation with Splash.
Yeah. And you said, I mean, Weekend at Bernie's, which was, I'm almost tempted to watch that again for how miserable it was. You know,
I'm scared to watch it because those are also the kinds of movies that don't hold up.
Right.
Those are the movies that inherently will not hold up. And when you watch them now, all of a sudden you'll be reminded of the Me Too movement. You'll be reminded of sexual harassment. You'll be reminded of like all the workplace inequalities.
Just the cringy stuff,
it's
right?
super stuff. Like it's stuff that would never hold up today, but it's stuff that we also found hilarious back in the day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure somebody had sex with Bernie at Weekend at Bernie's, which
Absolutely.
means that there was necrophilia, which again wouldn't last. Like it wouldn't make it out of the writer's room today.
I 100% remember the scene because like the dude's girlfriend comes downstairs, and I remember the guy who's babysitting at Bernie's is like, thought like, okay, I'm definitely caught. And she's like, lights up a cigarette, like leans back, like, oh, that was good. And he's like, everything okay up there? And she's like, never been better. You know, and it was just like, and then like he turns to his buddy and says something like, no. Do you think? And they're like, no. Do you think?
Anyway, so that's why I don't want to watch them. It's not that I don't think that it's because I know precisely that they wouldn't hold up.
Yeah.
And I don't want to tarnish the memory that I have of it.
So can we say something else? We've seen a lot of folks that have run, you know, from the movies that they're in, and then they try to take these really crazy roles, you know, to kind of like get their street cred back. Can we also take a moment for Tom Cruise, who's actually kind of stayed baseline?
He's embraced it,
Like he's never really had a cringy movie like that. He had Risky Business, right? He had The Color of Money.
The Firm?
Yeah, The Firm. You know, he had this thing where he was a bartender, but like, I don't think he ever had like he was never in that kind of like 80s super cringy rom-com where it's like, oh man, like can you know, like Tom Hanks, maybe he wasn't anything like cringy, but like you said, he was in Bosom Buddies is a great example.
Yeah, Bosom Buddies, great, fantastic.
So bravo to Steve Carell for showing a lot of range.
And by the way, also bravo to them for not trying to forget about their past either, right?
Yeah.
Like Tom Hanks to this date, he always says, listen, those movies gave me the opportunity to make me a serious actor, and I enjoyed all of them, and I think they were funny. I think he still fondly remembers his days on Bosom Buddies and all of that thing.
Who's the other dude? Who's the other dude?
In Bosom Buddies? Peter Scolari.
Has he been in anything else?
Probably. I'm looking it up now.
That's really a tough life if you're like, dude, we were the same character and now you got everything and I got nothing, right?
You know, that's that's the way it works.
Is it? Yeah.
Anyway, so so my point earlier was the contrary example of that is Jonah Hill, who also cut his teeth on these like super silly, raunchy teen comedies.
Yeah.
And now he's just like, oh, I don't want to be associated with any of those movies. Please don't talk to me about them. I've elevated myself beyond that. He's got this level of arrogance because he's like, well, now I do a Scorsese movie.
Yeah.
I'm besties with Leonardo DiCaprio. I don't want to be associated with all those movies where, basically I had my junk out on screen. I don't like that personally. I think that, don't.
Does DiCaprio embrace his? Remember what was the sitcom he was on? Family Tie? Not Family Ties. The one with Kirk Cameron, whatever that's called, and Alan Thicke. We got to bring back Milo. Milo is our 80s expert.
80s expert, touche. Milo,
You
if you're
remember this
listening,
show?
please let us know.
You remember this show?
I don't remember this show.
Kirk Cameron was on it until he resigned in a ball of religious rage.
Growing Pains.
Yes, Growing Pains.
Yes.
Okay, so that is room 104 from Pete. He gives it a
mooch.
And The Patient from me, I give it a skip, but mostly because I've got a weak stomach for stuff like this.
That's fine.
This episode of Stream or Skip.
So coming up for next week, you're going to be watching on Showtime, which again might be available on Paramount Plus. I don't know how this works because Paramount and Showtime are rolling up together.
Didn't we call it Showmount?
We did call it Showmount, yeah. Showmount Plus HD +1. I don't know. A show that I think you're going to really enjoy. It's called Your Honor, starring Bryan Cranston.
Oh, it's got to be a Judge movie then, huh?
In fact, it is. I know the premise. I don't know if you want me to tell you the premise, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be good.
Okay. You do like Bryan Cranston.
Yeah. I do like Bryan Cranston. Yeah. And I will be watching on Hulu another miniseries, Dopesick, with Michael Keaton.
Oh, I've heard of this. I have no idea what it's about. I'm going to guess drugs, but maybe not.
It's about the opioid crisis.
Did I tell you that I watched the MH370? I watched a documentary on Netflix, if we can add that to our streamer skip.
And?
It is quite good, I have to say, for a documentary.
Okay.
I mean, that mystery has not really been solved yet. So it's kind of a documentary without an ending. I would say it's more like a recap of exactly what happened if you haven't really followed it closely. And I have to say, there are stories in this world where there's no winners, right? I mean, of course, whenever there's a plane crash, it's tragic. I have to say, I'm a little bit sympathetic to the Malaysian aviation authorities, and the airline were roundly, almost globally criticized for being inept and liars and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I have to say, it's not an easy situation, like
not at all.
Sometimes you just don't have information, you can't manufacture information when you don't have information. And I mean, there's a lot of really smart people from around the world looking into this. And even today, although I guess there's a quote unquote official place where the plane has gone down, it's not by any stretch of the imagination agreed what happened, how it happened, or even where the aircraft is. There's a lot of people who are very smart, or at least very dedicated, who absolutely disagree that it's in one of three or more different places, right? And even each of these three places, it's not like a specific coordinate. It's like, well, maybe it's within this 1,000,000 square miles, that might be
whatever
example.
it is,
100 square miles,
crazy,
yeah. It's really a story without any winners whatsoever. But I think the one takeaway I had, not to be crass, which is it was really a tragedy. And I wish that a lot of people would spend a little bit more energy kind of emotionally healing rather than kind of demanding the answers of the closure that's just not available, right?
Yeah.
Certainly not fair, but I mean, you cannot manufacture something if you don't have it. So anyway, it's interesting. If you haven't seen it, there's some interesting personalities in the story. A lot of people have very, very strong opinions based on evidence or based on math or based on some other things or logic. Some of them are more
emotional
gut feelings. Yeah. But it's interesting from that perspective. Anyway, that is added bonus for streamer skip.
So there you have it. That is this week's episode. Again, Room 104 is a mooch. The Patient is a skip. And we'll be back next week with Your Honor and with... What am I watching? Dopesick.
Yep. There we go. It's been a long week. All right.
It has. All right.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Pete, you want to read off our credentials so people can get in touch with us?
We've slightly updated our lists, but if you've got any more recommendations, reach out to us. Leave a comment below this video. Send us a tweet at F&S Podcast. Drop us an Instagram DM at Films and Stuff Podcast, or send us an email, aloha@filmsandstuffpodcast.com.
We'll be waiting for feedback and comments and suggestions. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Pete.
Thanks, Ethan. Thanks, everyone.
Bye now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.